Hang on one second. Many issues in and around sports this week, and certainly with the Ravens sort of sputtering along here in an 8-8 season. And we'll hear from Steve Bisciotti next week. There are other things happening in the National Football League. Some teams are looking to play playoff games this weekend and win a Super Bowl and be in Houston 4 weeks from now when me and the WNST crew roll in there. Some teams are looking for head coaches or personnel people, and then some people are just looking for civility with their own media members. We go to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Imagine a brush-up amongst the media and media relations for the Philadelphia Eagles. This guy was a longtime friend of mine. We've been Facebook friends. He is now a lawyer. He cut his teeth in PR. I can proudly say that my first ever National Hockey League press pass in 1984 was signed by this guy. He was the Capitals PR assistant at the time. We welcome in Micah Buckdahl, making his debut here at WNST Radio, but certainly not on the airways or in the media. He worked at the Baltimore Sun for a period of time. And Micah, you consider yourself a Baltimore guy, don't you?
Oh, I am. I'm still a Baltimorean.
Well, you know, the story comes that you wrote a piece out on Facebook this week that you shared that was published at Philly.com and the Philadelphia Inquirer. You ran press boxes. You were almost as young as me. When I had my first press pass, I was 16. I can't think you weren't 19 or 20 at the time.
Yeah, that's about right.
And you got out of the business. I mean, you went into the soccer business briefly and then went on to the media side. And how about long you been? Tell me what you do in Philadelphia, because you wrote such a thoughtful piece on this press box ejection. And obviously, you know, I've been interjected into this story with the Orioles over the last decade for fighting back for tyranny. And, you know, someone fought for themselves and got thrown out on Sunday, and you had some very, very interesting thoughts on it, I thought.
Yeah, well, you know, Nestor, well, first of all, I've been working, you know, I went to law school, and I've been working with law firms on marketing and business development efforts for, I mean, probably close to 20 years now.
So you've been out of sports for 20 years, literally.
Yeah, but like, look, my friends are still the same guys that work in the media and that work at teams, and so I've always sort of, you know, kept my fingers on the pulse of the business. And you know, really kind of stayed, you know, again, I'm sort of on the fringes. I'm also, you know, what wasn't written in that piece was that, you know, I am an Eagles season ticket holder. And you know, and I guess on Sunday afternoon when that incident sort of hit the airwaves, or hit the internet as it would be, you know, I found it, you know, I found it disturbing, and I found it disturbing as you know, as somebody thinking about the PR side, and I found it disturbing as somebody thinking about it from the media side. And actually, just to show you how quickly, you know, sort of the media world works and the news cycle works. You know, yesterday morning I got up and I read the Inquirer, and I read Bob Brookover's column on the incident.
As did I. I mean, I'm very fascinated by this. I mean, I'm a guy that had my press pass really taken away, and nobody ever did anything about it. You know.
Well, I'll tell you what. You know, like, first of all, I do have to tell you that you know, it had, you know, it got really big placement in the Inquirer and the op-ed page this morning. And I've gotten a ton of emails in the last day, mostly from, you know, Looney Tunes of sorts.
Well, I mean, you're in Philadelphia. I mean, yeah. There are people who write me every day and wag their finger and say you got what you deserve for speaking out about the owner of the baseball team who put the team in last place for a decade and a half and who's pocketed, you know, $3 billion while the stadium is rotted here. That's been my stance on it. I had a press pass for 21 years that was stripped away from me 10 years ago. And, you know, if the other media doesn't stand up and say that that's wrong, then they're going to sit down there with their thumb in their mouth, and they're going to do whatever they're told to do. They're going to write whatever they're told to write. And that should, given who's taking over our country right now, and I don't want to get onto the political bent, but this is going to be happening every minute of every day to places like the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times when they try to write the truth about the leader of the free world. It's huge.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and
it's not a sports problem; it's a society problem. You know, as I see it, you know, it's not an Eagles problem; it's not a Philadelphia Inquirer problem.
Yeah, but you know, and like, you know what, you're right, and it reflects society really in terms of the responses that I've gotten, because 9 out of 10, you know, kind of yahoos that email me are sitting there telling me that I'm a whiner and, he got what he deserved.
Yeah, go have another tasty cake in the press box, right? I mean, that's where it's at. And, the media is now hated here, and you have, a president that got elected on hating the media. And, then there are the people who supported this president who will hate the media as well, whether it's some sports writer at an Eagles game or some mouthy radio guy in Baltimore about the baseball team. I mean, I don't know where else we're going to get truth, in policing and government and, all of the other things when we can't even figure it out in an Eagles press box. And as you said in your piece, it becomes this junior high school, who's got the safety badge today? Who's wearing the little orange strip with the little silver badge, and who's going to play God,
Well, Nestor, one of the things that, I think about it, one of the items that I mentioned in the column was that I had spoken to the Temple University PR Student Society about, I think in November. It was on Election Day, ironically. And they asked me to come in and talk about sort of the way sports PR and sports has sort of changed from the time I first got involved, which, like you said, was, I interned as I was a high school intern for the Baltimore Blast in like 1980.
This is all we wanted to do with our lives. You and I were kids 30 years ago. We met, and I'm still doing it. You went somewhere else. By the way, can I just ask you, are you a bigger sports fan because you left the business? Do you enjoy sports more, or you still have this cynical bent from seeing this sort of stuff and wondering, what is it, your age, your IQ, when this stuff happens in a professional environment that you have to sit at your keyboard and write a piece about it because you're so offended by the ethics of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I kind of flash back to, my experiences, doing PR with the Flyers and the Caps and everybody else, feels like yesterday. And I remember it like it was yesterday.
And you were trained a certain way as to what was right and what was wrong, right?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the interesting emails I got yesterday, almost immediately upon publication was from the guy that was the PR director of the Flyers, Roger Gottlieb, when I was there.
I remember Roger. Roger wrote me many press passes for games at the Spectrum. Sure.
And so, I haven't been in touch with him in, maybe 30 years. and he read it and he reached out to me and, we kind of discussed over email. Can you imagine, I used the example, actually, it was one of those examples that got cut out of the, that got edited out of the piece, but, I kind of suggested that, back in the day, when, if I was, if we were manning the Flyers press box and the same thing happened with, Jay Greenberg or Al Morgani, the only thing that would happen is, like, we would have all gotten fired the next morning, and Jay and Al would be back in the press box, covering hockey. And again, back then, even thinking to my days working with the Caps and Lou Corletto and David Poyle, the amount of how concerned we were as media relations professionals about the relationship with the press. Like, my God, how freaked out people would get if anything wasn't right in the Washington Post. Conversations with, back then, Bob Fachet, who was the beat writer, or George Solomon, who was the sports editor. Like the
Dave Fay at the Times. I mean, it was competitive, and people wanted to. It's still competitive, and people want to get a story.
I know, but on the sports side, we cared about what the media had to say, and we cared about the relationships. And as I wrote in my piece, even if I thought you were an idiot. Okay, even if if the franchise or the owners or the GM or the coach, if we thought you were a buffoon as a member of the media, whether you were a radio guy or a TV guy or a newspaper guy, it didn't matter. We still had to have a good relationship with you because we wanted you to say nice things about us. We wanted to have. We wanted to be able to, get, when we needed something. And that was one of the examples I gave the students.
Well, you were always looking for your next fan. You were always looking to turn someone into a fan of your soccer team, your hockey team, your football team, whatever it is. The ship has sailed on that. The Orioles don't need to be nice to anyone. They're making $100 million a year of profit to roll out of bed. They don't even care if they sell tickets. That's where we are. certainly if most of the NFL teams, if they could just make the media go away, they would. Now, the Ravens really aren't there, and people like Kevin Byrne that remember when they came to town and nobody wanted the purple Barney outfits. But, I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles don't need anyone in their press box, and I'm sure Lori feels that way about it, that you can only do them harm and no good at this point because look around. Everyone's wearing green. We don't need you anymore. And that's, Donald Trump doesn't need the media in America. He doesn't want to deal with the media in America. Bill Belichick doesn't need the media in New England. He doesn't want the media. I mean, if he never had to do it again, it would not affect in any way because 9 out of 10 of the Yahoos hate Dan Shaughnessy anyway, right? I mean, that's kind of the deal that they've made the media to be the real bad guy. And, people get off when the media gets thrown out. I know in my case here, there's a large contingent of Orioles fans who think I got what I deserved for telling the truth after being abused and, treated like garbage. And, Micah, one thing that I just want to throw in, and I'll let you go nuts on this as much as you want, but 2 weeks ago, I was around those people, and I haven't said that. We're 15 minutes into this conversation, and I guess one of the things that really spurred this was Sunday, I was on my couch, which is very rare, that I didn't go to Cincinnati this week. I saw, around 3 o'clock, the brouhaha hitting Twitter, and I know McClain, I know all those beat writers, I know Spadaro, I know the people that cover the Eagles and Howard Eskin and all those people, and I remembered vividly 2 weeks ago when the Eagles were here, the guy, Zach Groen, the young PR guy, yelling down at the Philadelphia media, admonishing the group, yelling from 3 feet in front of me, hey, keep it down there. This is a professional environment. And it was, in 32 years of press boxes, Micah, I've never, ever, ever, ever heard a media relations person scream at the media en masse and chastise them like children in the third quarter of a football game. And at the time, the Eagles were getting their asses kicked, by the way. They came back in the game after the pick, and the Ravens almost lost the game. But in that game, I saw a moment, a glimpse, a snapshot of, and I turned to Luke, and I said, it's a good thing that wasn't in my direction. Because if they would have turned around and said to me, shut up, keep it down, or whatever, the police would have been involved, quite frankly. I mean, because I wouldn't take kindly to that. And I thought, I can't imagine the Philadelphia media, with the muscles that they have, that somebody didn't turn around and say to him, dude, I've been in this press box for 35 years. It's not even your press box. We're in Baltimore. We're not even in Philadelphia. How dare you speak to all of us in that sort of a tone? It was unprofessional. It really was. So I don't know what's led up to this, but I know I saw something myself 2 weeks ago that made me say, And I even said to my wife during the game, I'm like, there really must be some problems with the Philadelphia media and the Eagles at this point, and I didn't see that brewing before 2 weeks ago when they were in front of me, quite frankly.
Well, I think, and again, I mean, I think that's where it clearly stems from ownership. I mean, like you don't behave, like as a PR guy, you don't behave that way unless you're basically, sort of taught and trained to act that way toward the media. And clearly that's, clearly that's the message that they're getting internally. I mean, look, if that one, that woman, Ann Gordon, who was a newspaper person of all people, if she still has her job, in a month, then it kind of it was blessed, right? It tells you it sends you the message. I mean, how can you be the vice president of communications and whatever else is in the title, and have that negative a relationship with members of the media? And the other area too that I mentioned in the article, and you mentioned Dave Spadaro as an example. Like, he is basically a member of the PR department.
Yeah, he works for the Eagles. He works for the team.
He's a member. You are an employee of the Eagles. Your job is it's PR. And you're not going to hear him sit there and say like, oh, so and so should be fired. Or Jeff Lurie screwed up. I mean, it's his job to basically just, tout the company line. And so, so the Eagles would be more than happy to let you have, get your quote-unquote news from them, sanitized and edited for your pleasure, as opposed to, guys like McClain and,
Well, the public is definitely not onto this, right? I mean, these ethics and rules you speak of and that I speak of, and when Chris Pica comes on and when we talk about, a guy like Kevin Byrne who's been around forever, who has an old school set of ethics as to the way that this is supposed to work, it's not being taught to young. Greg Bader doesn't understand this. Greg Bader has now worked for the Orioles for 25 years, and he has not the first clue about PR. He would read your piece and laugh at it and call it the work of what are we still living in the pre-dinosaur era of how we handle these creeps in the media who get out of line. If we can't intimidate them, if we can't bully them, or if they write the truth and we call it a lie long enough. I mean, that's the world we're living. We just elected a president that this is the way media is going to be interacted over the next 4 years. The media people are going to be vilified, and that certainly has happened with me in Baltimore, and as you found out in taking the side of 1984 PR sports common sense. Mike, it's a different world now. I mean, I don't think most PR people who are these 26, 28, 30, 32-year-old PR people, that they would read your piece and they'd say, yeah, it's like the Rodney Dangerfield back. Yeah, that's what they tell you in the textbook. But let me tell you how it really works. When we're here, we don't like this guy, we don't let him here. We don't like that guy, we make it hard for him. We don't like this guy, so we don't give him a parking pass. This guy here, we make sure he has the back row with the column in front of him. He doesn't get a good seat. There's all of that goes on behind the scenes because it is more juvenile in a lot of cases in a lot of places, and I think the writers feed into that. I mean, I'm around the writers and the media people as well. Most of them hate the PR staffs because they've been treated like a bunch of dogs at some point. And I saw the Eagles PR people treat their media contingent like dogs 2 weeks ago. And I wondered, at some point, is that going to boil over? And it really only boils over when the media sort of sticks together. It doesn't do anybody any good to have one of them thrown out and the other 30 wave and write a little story as the guy goes out, and then they go down to the locker room and act like nothing ever happened. I mean, so what's the upshot of this, Michael? What's going to happen with the Eagles and with the league? My guess is nothing, and my guess is Ann Gordon's going to keep her job, right?
Yeah, I mean, that would be my guess. And, as you pointed out, hey, look, I'm an Eagles season ticket holder, okay? And I've been an Eagles season ticket holder for, at least before the link opened. And there's you will not hear me sit there and go, I'm outraged. I'm not going to go to Eagles games anymore, right? Me and my kid aren't going to wear.
Yeah, nobody stopped going to Orioles games because my press pass got taken away.
Exactly.
Nobody gives a rat's ass, quite frankly, about the actions. It's still, that's the gig they have. No matter what, we're the Orioles. F you. We're the Eagles. F you. And they have the ability to do that now. And in 1978, they didn't. They needed guys like you and me to be there and be on their side, or at least try to keep us on their side to some degree.
Totally. And hey, look, I always have to I always have to remind people that, I'm 53 years old now, which is hard for me to come to grips with sometimes. But, I grew up going, all I did was go to Oriole games. Taking the bus there from 1976 on, and every morning and every day, reading Dan Shaughnessy, or watching the Clippers, or reading Jim Jackson, or reading Mike Litwin.
Or Phil Jackman. Don't leave Jackman out, for crying out loud.
Yeah, of course.
Don't leave him out.
And Glaub, my buddy Glauber, and Nicholas. So it's one of those things where I was a sports fan. I didn't work in sports then. I was a kid who loved sports, and so I had to read everything that these guys wrote, and eventually it morphed into a career. But today, many of these teams, again, the ownership's different. The money's certainly different. Like you said, like a monkey.
Well, their needs are different. They don't have a need to be nice to newspapers or radio people. They don't need to do that. The Ravens could shut everybody down, throw everybody out, and have Ravens.com, and they wouldn't lose a PSL holder.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so that's what, I mean, that's kind of what inflamed or incensed me, and I did, I sat there on Sunday and I started reading, I started looking for more articles on the subject. I was looking to see what other media people covered the incident. And as you noted, it wasn't a lot. I mean, less, you had less, but the best stuff was really like Les Bowen's series of live tweets as it happened. Which if you read those, like, and you're someone who appreciates the media and journalism, like you read those and you're offended by it.
I wonder what Conlon would write, right? You know what I'm saying? Like in Philadelphia, I wonder what Stedman would have to say to the old man, after he took my press pass if he were still alive.
No, exactly.
That stuff wouldn't stand. It just wouldn't stand.
And it wouldn't,
but it does.
Yeah, and it does.
It stood here. This is my 11th year without a press pass at the Orioles. Is it the color of my skin? Is it my sexuality? I mean, why don't you let me in? They've never even. And then the fans say, "Well, hey, Nasty, why don't they let you?" They don't have to give me a reason. It's just because they don't like the way I look. That's why. It's that discriminating.
Again, like you can't decide that you're going to, give a credential to someone who writes fluff on you and not give it to someone who's hard hitting or investigative. And and again, I read, the other area. I show my age. Every morning the Philadelphia Inquirer is on my front driveway, and I read the hard copy newspaper. And and I enjoy it. And I read every one of. I'm a big Eagles fan. I read every one of those articles. And and I've come to appreciate. I don't know Jeff McClain. I've never met him. I knew Les Bowen in the hockey in the olden days in hockey. But I didn't know McClain. I don't really know Brooke Over. But I read these guys every day, and I appreciate the hard work that they put into. I was particularly impressed with McClain went on doing his job, which was really pretty amazing. For one thing, he never, I know that he ended up discussing it, I guess, on the radio, but he basically just went on doing his job. He didn't tweet about it. He didn't mention it in any of his pieces. He let other people do that talking for him. He let the newspaper, do the talking for him as you should, because if you become the story, then you've you've potentially ruined all the work and all the effort that you put into developing the beat for yourself. And so he went on and he wrote, he did all his follow up and all his articles, as if nothing happened. And so I thought that was great, that he picked up his things and he went on, because you know what? I mean, if the Inquirer decided, like, look, Jeff, you can't get along with these guys, you're not going to get access to what we need to get access to.
Yeah, you're on the LaSalle beat beginning next week, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're going to have to go, cover something else. And that would be wrong, because as you know, like, these guys that cover these beats for a number of years develop, significant contacts and sources. And I think he's done that, and I think he's done a great job. And, if I thought he was sort of a half-assed writer, and he got kicked out, maybe I wouldn't have cared. I mean, I think you and I could probably think of guys in the old Caps press box where, if they got thrown out, you would be like, well, he was an idiot anyway.
No, I mean, I see people every day who work for my competitors here who have no more clue of what media is, and they run around with their little mic flag, heinous human beings. I mean, people that I wouldn't want to be in an elevator with, but they're in the media, so, I'm stuck standing next to them. But, yeah, I mean, I hear you, man. Well, look, I love you, appreciate you, miss you, all that good stuff. Still follow you out on Facebook once in a while. Micah Buckdahl is my friend. He is a longtime PR guy, many moons ago, as well as a reporter who, at least from the outside, you got your little, you got your jab in the Philadelphia Inquirer this week. You can go find him out on LinkedIn. Are you on Twitter, by the way, Micah?
Yeah, I am on Twitter. M Buckdahl.
All right,
and CHDHL, and
I must say Milford Mill High, a real Baltimore guy.
That's right.
But I mean, you've really adopted this Philly thing, dude. You got this whole Temple Eagles. I mean, you could be mixed up in this and be misperceived as being one of them and not one of us.
Well, I think what, it's funny because I think some people have seen that, but I do want to clarify. I don't know what I'd do again in a Phillies Orioles World Series like I've had once.
We had that in '83, yeah.
In '83, and me and my son did root. We were that was actually my first Ravens game in Baltimore ever 2 weeks ago. for the Eagles.
Well, you are an Eagles fan. See, I was an Eagles season ticket holder back in the 80s during the Buddy Ryan. When we lost the Colts, my buddy Russ Letcher from Dundalk got season tickets up there, and I went to 5-6 Eagles games every year for all of those Randall Cunningham, Gang Green, Jerome Brown, Reggie White, that when Baldinger played there, that was my era of. But I was never like an Eagles fan. I was an Oilers fan. I hated the Cowboys. I hated the Redskins. So it was a lot of fun to go up there and root for the Eagles. But I never adopted it, And it's a nasty fan base too. I mean, it's really.
Oh, it is.
They're just horrific human beings. Eagles.
They
fans.
are. I think I mentioned to you. I think I put a post on your Facebook page during that game. That me and my kid who's 8 years old, he was wearing his Wentz jersey and cheering as loudly as you'd expect an 8-year-old to cheer for his team. And I said, like, if this same thing were in Philadelphia, an 8-year-old in a Joe Flacco jersey doing the same thing my kid was doing, I mean, he would have gotten one of those a-hole chants, even though he was 8.
The worst things I've ever seen happen at NFL games have happened in Philadelphia. I saw a girl in a Jamal Lewis jersey 15 years ago get called a whore for 3 quarters by everyone.
Look,
literally.
I mean, it's not. I always tell people I've been sitting in the same seats, and certainly in the Link since they opened. I don't like 90% of the people that are around me, and I have to see them every game. They're a different makeup. It is not as nice as Baltimore. The people are not as nice.
Let me guess.
As
you
Baltimore.
suck. Fill in the blank. You suck.
Yeah.
Andy Reid, you suck. Yeah, exactly. So
but also look. Just remember my own timeline. I came. I graduated from Milford Mill in '81 and came to Temple. And so I grew up a huge Colts fan with Burt Jones and Lydell Mitchell and everybody else and so when the Colts left, they left and I'm in Philly, and so I didn't have a team, and so I adopted the Eagles immediately.
Well, you've been there 20 years now, 25 years, right?
Yeah, I've been here longer than I've been here longer than I was in Baltimore growing up.
Poor SOB. You should have gone to Arizona State or something,
Yeah, but you know what? It is the one thing I will say in defense of my fellow Philadelphia sports fans, because I am one, and I'm an avid one, and I'm a big.
I know you are. I follow you on Facebook.
I'm a huge Temple basketball and Temple football guy.
Bill Cosby's the next conversation. We'll do that next time.
Yeah, but they're the fans here they're passionate, and and they do shit. They're passionate, and they usually show up, and those are two critical ingredients. Everybody's not very nice, and there are always those negative incidents, but for the most part, people care about their sports here, and they support their teams, and as long as the Phillies are slightly better than mediocre, which they haven't been, people are going to show up, and so people show up, and it's a fun sports town, and it's really one of the things that drew me here. When I went to go to colleges, I wanted to go to a town that had a lot of sports, and I wanted to go to a town that had a lot of newspapers, because my aim was to go into print journalism. And when I arrived in Philly, I think there were like 6 dailies here.
Well, you too can be thrown out of an Eagles press box if you would have had one of those gigs, right?
Yeah,
Micah, man, I'll check in with you again. I'll make this a revolving cast when I need some dirt out of Filthy. Hey, man, Filthy's not that bad. It gave us Joe Flacco, so we're appreciative of that down here, right?
That's right. Actually, his cousin is in my daughter's grade at school in South Jersey. So so there are a lot of
Flaccos running around there in Haddon Heights,
Flaccos
right?
in South Jersey. Plus the kicking guy, he was the mayor of Evesham in South Jersey. What's his name? The kicking coach, Randy.
Oh, Randy, yeah, Randy Brown.
He's a South Jersey guy. He's the mayor of this little town, next to ours. So
see, man, all these things run together. Even Bryant McKinney was from that part of the world too. So we have things going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of purple, and there's a lot of purple in South Jersey.
All right, man. Look, appreciate you. We'll definitely stay in touch. He is Micah Bookdahl. You can follow him out on Twitter as well as on LinkedIn and all places where Temple lawyers are served and good media. So great piece in Philly.com, man. Well done. Well played.
Thanks, Nestor.
You got it. Micah Bookdahl joining us here from the city of brotherly hate. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.